Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. I appreciate the invitation. And what I'd like to speak to you about in the next 30 minutes or so, if I can have my slides up, is a little bit about where the world of technology is going and how that's changing the world of healthcare and medicine and disability, and how we can start to reimagine the future of medicine, disability, and our own personal health across a big spectrum. But I thought before we look into the future, we take a little bit of a work backwards. Now, it's amazing that this is the 50th anniversary of Het Dorp. I did my medical school at Stanford, and then I went on to do my residency training at the Massachusetts General Hospital, which just had its 200th anniversary. And so I was back at Mass General in Boston last year, and it was a reunion of all the doctors we trained together. And we had a chance to tell our old war stories and visit the old places in Boston. The joke being in Boston that we had to walk uphill both ways in the snow. And one night after a reception at the 200th anniversary, I found myself at one of the very famous places of medical history. This is called the Ether Dome at Massachusetts General Hospital, and this is the site where in 1846, this lucky gentleman was the first patient to get general anesthesia with his surgery. A big deal if you're having surgery. And so the Ether Dome is now a shrine of medical history. It hasn't changed in 160 years. You can still see the same sponge that the patient used. And we have some special events there, grand rounds, special meetings. So it's frozen in time. I wandered down the hall about 3 minutes away to the ward where I spent my very first month as a brand new doctor. And that hadn't changed either in about 15 years at least. And some of the same alarms were beeping, some of the same nurses, some of the same patients. The only difference was that the young doctor was pushing around a cart with a computer on it. And my thought was, even at Massachusetts General Hospital, a great institution of medicine, things were kind of the same. Medicine is still being practiced in the way it's been done for over 100 years, very much in silos, very much stuck in departments and defined in old-fashioned ways. And if we're to rethink the future of medicine and disability and healthcare, we need to think differently. We need to reinvent healthcare, not practice it as it has been done. We can do that because we're not just a bucket of body parts or a bunch of ology departments. We're much more than that. So we can, again, rethink how we do healthcare. We can also rethink the world of disability and how we define disability by using some amazing new technologies. We need some of these new technologies to address major challenges we have in healthcare and medicine across the planet, whether that's the rising costs, the aging of the population, access to care, the challenges we have now with lots of new information coming at us, big data, it's often called. And even though some of the new innovations we'll see here today at Het Dorp and that I'll talk about are almost here today, we have the challenge of regulation and who's going to pay for this technology. One of the options and big opportunities is to change where medicine is being practiced. Traditionally, it's been in the hospital and the clinic, and now the trend is to move that outside, to the village, to the house, even onto our own bodies. Now, if you think about it, even the last 10 years, many, many things have happened. The world is moving faster and faster, especially in the realm of technology. Many technologies are moving what I like to call exponentially. Our brains tend to think linearly. We tend to think, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I took 30 linear steps, I'd be to the door. If I took 30 exponential steps, doubling every step, 2, 4, 8, 16, by 30 steps, I'd be at 1 billion steps. That's around the planet 60 times. And our brains don't tend to think that way. But it's at the exponential, particularly through technology, that there's a lot of opportunity for change and even disruption. And through these new fast-moving technologies, like the speed of computing and the fact that now the smartphones in our pockets are about 1 billion times as more powerful in terms of speed and price than the best supercomputers of 1970s, we have a lot of opportunities to reinvent the world, and we've been doing that. We can think, even the last 10 years, we've reimagined and rethought how we read books. Now there are more e-books sold than traditional books on Amazon.com. We've reinvented how we take photos, dramatically different, and there's been disruption. Kodak, for example, now is a bankrupt company, while a company like Instagram is worth $1 billion. So we've changed the way we've done photography, how we share the news, how we tweet and share information, how we even pay for things. All these things have been reinvented. And we now have the opportunity to reinvent healthcare and medicine and how we treat and help the disabled. And obviously, this is changing our lives in many, many ways and is becoming layered. We have information stacking upon information. And that's happening not just in the internet, in our computers, in our pocket, but also in the world of genomics. We're now at the point where the cost of sequencing a human genome, which cost $1 billion and took 7 years, about a decade ago, has dropped at twice the rate of Moore's law. Every year, it's now coming down in price by almost 2 or 4-fold, to the point now where I recently had my complete genome sequenced for about $1,000. So that has applications in understanding our own health, in better diagnostics, in better ways to treat diseases and understand them, and will change the course of medicine. It's not just genomics that are getting less expensive. It's measuring the proteome, the proteins in our blood from our lab tests, measuring the environment and elements of where we live, data from our biomarkers, from the bacteria in our GI system. All these are becoming now understandable in new ways. With faster computing, we're now able to look inside the body in terms of imaging. We can now use high-speed computing tech to reconstruct a patient's data to enable, for example, a surgeon to do better planning for an operation, or to build a better interface for someone with disability, or, as I'll speak about later, to 3D print individualized objects. We're integrating this sort of information with understanding the brain and neurology, not just to understand the beautiful anatomy of the brain, but the connectome, how the brain is working, and in some cases even to reverse engineer computers to work like the brain so they become faster and more powerful. Sometimes now we can make medicine better and cheaper. We're changing and disrupting the way we do old procedures. For example, the cardiac angiogram, which enables us to look at the blood vessels in the heart. Normally takes an hour in the catheter lab and a needle in the groin and a catheter to the heart. Well, now we're in the early days of being able to take a CT scan, 30-second CT scan, take that information, put it to the cloud in a computer, and through high-speed computing based in the cloud, calculate, let's say, the narrowing of a patient's blood vessel, the coronary artery, and see how narrow is it, and would it benefit from a stent or not, or a bypass surgery, and if so, what kind of stent? So we can individualize patient care based on this technology and reinvent and reimagine the cardiac angiogram, for example. Other examples, a startup from Stanford University, where I'm based, is reinventing how to look at the heart with an MRI. A 10-minute MRI can now replace an ultrasound and give you much more data about the structure and the function of the heart, for example, in heart failure, to provide better individualized therapy. Now, that's just an example of faster computing. All that now is being shrunk into the magic of our powerful mobile smartphones. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe we had the Palm Pilot. Today, we're clearly in the world of smart pad technology. It's only been 2.5 years since the iPad came out, and now these are obviously transforming medicine in new ways and enabling us to reinvent how we interact with our family and with our healthcare providers. Lucy and England and those at Reshape are doing that today on the iPad. Here's an example of what's being developed on mobile technology today.
Goedemiddag, meneer Karis. Hoe gaat het met u?
Ja, goed. Alleen heb ik de laatste tijd wat last van mijn rechterbeen. Het sleept een beetje na en dan vraag ik me af hoe ik dat het beste kan behandelen.
Veestok is een online dienst via het internet die het mogelijk maakt om te beeldbellen tussen patiënten en hun zorgverlener.
Het is niet langer 1-op-1, maar je kan er professionals bij betrekken. Je kan mensen die de ziekte ook hebben betrekken om mee te praten.
Je ziet iets op internet over nieuwe medicijnen. Kun je zeggen van nou, dit medicijn, dat staat erop.
Denk ik dat we zeker wat met de medicatie kunnen gaan aanpassen.
Maar ik zou ook graag de fysiotherapeut er even bij willen vragen om te zien of hij nog adviezen heeft.
Goedemiddag, dokter Bloem. Goedemiddag, meneer Karis.
Met Veestok heb je enerzijds de mogelijkheid om een spreekuur te houden. Maar je daarnaast ook gewoon, net als een telefonische afspraak, dat gepland kunt doen.
Dan als je naar de arts moet, dus voor mij meer dan een uur rijden. Nou kan ik dat op 5 minuten of 10 minuten kan ik dat consult afronden.
Doordat dit via het gewone normale openbare internet, maar wel veilig gaat, ontstaat er een mogelijkheid dat patiënten van thuis uit gewoon met een huisarts en met een specialist aan de slag kunnen.
Veestok graaft echt een digitale tunnel tussen jou en de patiënt, waar niemand anders tussenkomt. Dus het voldoet aan de hoogste veiligheidsnormen. En dat is denk ik voor besprekingen over gezondheidsproblemen cruciaal. Ik vind zelf het gebruikersgemak een heel groot voordeel. Bijvoorbeeld een video bekijken waarin een patiënt zijn bewegingsstoornis laat zien. Dat vind ik een heel bijzondere, handige feature. Ik merk dat ik op die manier mijn zorg ook veel efficiënter in kan richten.
So that's just one example of how smart iPad-type technologies and the thousands of apps that have been developed can be utilized. I have in my pocket actually an Android-based tablet that's just starting to be sold in India. It only costs $35, so about 25 euros. And imagine how this can be used not just for healthcare, but for education. For $35, we can give these to patients and prescribe them as part of their care, and to enable technologies and communication and better access to medicine, as we saw in that example. Obviously, these new technologies are being used to improve access for those with various disabilities, for communicating even with sign language. There's now speech, text-to-speech, so readers that can read text and speak that for those who cannot see, for example. There are even technologies that connect smart pad technologies to Braille. Now, one interesting example that's happening across healthcare is diagnostics merging with these medical technologies. For example, in diabetes, ways to measure blood sugar and integrate that with a dashboard. When you can see your own information as a patient or as a provider or in a healthcare system and understand how to implement and have feedback loops, you can dramatically improve outcome. For example, in diabetes, simply recording a blood sugar, allowing the doctor to see the blood sugar numbers and adjust that can dramatically lower the blood sugar averages in these patients and provide much better outcomes. We're starting to see the prescription of apps. Instead of prescribing a drug or device, you give a patient an application to understand whether it's pregnancy or a procedure after a surgery or how to better take care of their using their pharmaceuticals. All these things are becoming appified and can dramatically improve care. And we're integrating healthcare with elements of fun, of gamification, to keep people on top of both their wellness and their treatment. And we're using new technologies like gaming technologies. The Microsoft Kinect, which is only a $100 device, which is used for playing fun games, is now being reinvented for, let's say, physical therapy. So you can measure someone's movements and make it fun and interactive and track whether they're doing their exercises at home. And this can, again, be used for someone who's had a shoulder surgery or someone with a disability to help them improve their physical activity. There are new versions of this coming that can be in front of your computer and enable just moving a finger to give incredible recording. And you can imagine how this could be applied in various elements of healthcare. So again, we're starting to take technologies invented for one application and use for gaming, for example, and apply them to healthcare in new ways. So we're in this new era of digital medicine, where we're taking different streams of information now that, again, are moving to our phone. For example, a glucometer measuring glucose that can be attached to a phone, or using the camera on a smartphone to measure blood glucose, to measure a skin lesion and determine whether it is a cancer or not, or an example of using the camera to look in the ear for diagnosing an ear infection in a child, for example, saving a visit to the pediatrician, or many other examples. One of my favorites is an EKG case. This is a case on my iPhone that can enable me to record an EKG directly on the phone. So this is actually, I recorded this earlier, but I could do this live and send this to my cardiologist, all on a smartphone. So the integration of fast-moving technologies is now enabling us to reinvent how we do healthcare, or even technologies like this that can attach and measure eye diseases or a prescription for your glasses. Now, many of these technologies didn't start, again, in healthcare. It started for those who want to stay in shape and record their activities. I'm wearing what's called a Fitbit. This is a little tiny device that tracks how many steps I've taken, how many calories I've consumed today. That's a simple model. This is for health. But now these are being applied in this world of quantified self across healthcare. For example, a blood pressure cuff that's attached to your smartphone and can record your blood pressure numbers, or a scale that will tweet your weight to your friends and your family, or a watch that records your heart rate and your motion. All these things are coming together in new ways to be applied for both health and medicine. Even tattoos that can measure your vital signs have been developed. Now the challenge and the opportunity is to meld the data from measuring your body now with diagnostics. You don't want to have to go to the laboratory to measure blood values. You want to be able to do this wherever you are. There's this new era of microfluidics, where we can do point-of-care diagnostics, taking a small amount of blood done right there at the point of care to measure important values, whether that's cardiac values, treating neurologic diseases, or others. And some of these tests are now even printable using printers, like on paper, so you can print out the test wherever you are in the world, which is opening up a new way of healthcare. Combined with telemedicine and a digital checkup, we can practice the best medicine anywhere in the world, whether we're here in Het Dorp or we're in rural India or Africa. We can provide first-level, first-grade medicine from wherever we are. So there's many layerings of technology now that can change the way we think about medicine, including the way that even the devices that are implanted in our bodies, like a pacemaker, now communicate with the outside world. There's apps for pacemakers, which sometimes have privacy concerns. Imagine I get an SMS text message saying, Daniel, go to the ATM bank and take out 400 euros or I'm turning off your pacemaker. That might be a problem. Or, so there's privacy issues. Sometimes it's a challenge of who owns the data. This is my friend Hugo, who has an implantable defibrillator, but the company who makes the device won't let him see his own data. What if we start to share our data and unsilo it and put it together in new powerful ways? How do we help doctors like myself integrate all this information? Sometimes it's overwhelming. There's more and more information, more and more papers being published. How do we keep track of all this information? Well, one opportunity is to use a growing field of artificial intelligence. Some of you might have seen IBM Watson beat the champions in Jeopardy! About a year and a half ago. It's a game show, but now the computers with artificial intelligence are getting very, very smart. Again, they beat the champions at the game show, and now what IBM is applying this technology to is to medicine. And I like to call it not artificial intelligence, but our AI, but IA, intelligence augmentation. It's taking a smart doctor and making them smarter, or a nurse, or a family member, and letting them integrate lots of medical information and education and guidelines and bring that to the point of care in smart new ways. And we'll see this not just for the patient, but for the caregiver, for the nurse, for the whole healthcare system, to make data more useful, smart, and bring better care at lower costs. The best way, I think, to have an analogy for this is to think about the modern cars. Modern cars have sometimes hundreds or thousands of sensors in them. And you don't care about what the pressure or the temperature is in piston number 3. You care about when your check engine light comes on. We have the OnStar system in General Motors cars. Imagine now we have this OnStar system for our bodies that starts to integrate this information in new ways and lets you know when you need to get care. And just like some of you might be Star Trek fans, you remember Dr. McCoy? He used the tricorder. We're now developing versions of the medical tricorder, which can bring us better diagnostics to wherever you are. In the pocket of your own pocket now, you can have the power of a $100,000 ultrasound machine for $2,000 to $4,000 today. Provides huge power, and now combined with artificial intelligence and mobile and telemedicine, we can rethink how we can provide diagnostics at the village, at the clinic, in your own home. In fact, there is now an X Prize, I was on the team that helped develop this, to build a medical tricorder to integrate this information. And over 250 teams have already applied to start solving the solution. How do we bring to the patient, to the family member, an integrated device? This is one company that's already building technologies that are fancy, connected thermometers and measure your vital signs. And this will be in your homes in the next few years. Here's a quick video looking at where this might be in the next 2 to 5 years.
Technology has given us an unprecedented window into the human body. But on a day-to-day basis, we're still in the dark about our own health. We are changing that.
You okay? Do you feel okay?
What if instead of fearing the worst when you notice something out of the ordinary, you could identify the condition yourself? Getting the right diagnosis would save you worry
It says it's roseola.
and an unnecessary doctor's visit.
Rest at home, it's okay.
Instead of hearing about a viral outbreak on the news, imagine you got an alert that was tailored to your family's needs. It would also give you advice about what to do next. What if you had a way to identify what was wrong right away?
It says it's 103.8.
A way to get all of the information you need to understand the situation. And in serious cases, you would know when and where to seek help.
It recommends taking it to urgent care.
We're building a way for people to check their bodies as often as they check their email. It's all possible, and it's only the beginning.
Now, some of us check our email too often, so that might be a problem. But this is just an example of technologies already here today that can be put together in smart new ways to improve the way we connect to our healthcare system, to our providers, and this can apply across the medical spectrum, including for those with disabilities. This new era of connected health, where we're connected to our families and our social network, and we can better understand through our social network how to avoid problems, or when we have problems, how to better address them. We know to optimize our health, we sometimes should eat less and exercise more. In fact, most of our diseases aren't because of our genetics, they're often because of our behaviors. What if we can leverage technologies in smart ways to see ourselves in new ways, using augmented reality, for example, to see how we might be if we stay in shape or get in better shape, or what's going to happen if we go the wrong direction? There are now apps, for example, to show how I look today, but what happens if I gain 50 pounds? You know, I might want to skip dessert today, for example. We're starting to reinvent the world of robotics. There's many examples you'll see here at DORP. I just saw one this morning of taking patients before who had significant disabilities, for example, in feeding themselves because of different causes of muscle weakness, and now integrating that with the new world of robotics so they can have assisted control and more autonomy in their daily life. And we're going to see more examples of using robotics in smart ways, of connecting exoskeletons to provide more mobility. I'll be speaking later in the afternoon, and we'll see some better examples of using robotics in new, very powerful ways. In some cases, we don't want to just treat a disorder or a problem with robotics. We want to cure it. We're now in the era of stem cell medicine and regenerative medicine, the ability to take stem cells and use those, in some cases, to cure disease. For example, just 2 years ago, the first trial using embryonic stem cells to treat spinal cord injury is underway. And now we have the ability to take your own skin cell and turn that into your own personalized embryonic-like stem cell. So we soon might have the ability not just to use these stem cells to understand disease, but to build our own body parts and eventually our own organs. Now, it's not enough just to have stem cells themselves. Sometimes we need to integrate that with other fast-moving technologies like 3D printing. 3D printing is getting very, very advanced. Here's an example of what it can do today. We can use a computer to design something and print it wherever you might be. And this obviously has applications if you want to build a tool, but it could be used to design a custom wheelchair part or a custom fitting or mold to meet an individual's needs. So 3D printing is now being combined with the world of prosthetics. So you can build an exact match for someone, for example, who's lost a leg. Or for crutches, for example, to build an exact match that matches the patient's hands or melds to their specific arm. Or as we get more advanced, as has been done in Belgium, in facial reconstruction to help the surgeons understand what's needed for that particular surgery. Or in some cases, even 3D print a replacement jaw for someone who's lost one to cancer. Or, as is already very common, into building a very customized hearing aid. So many examples of this are coming together, even in those, for example, young children who are growing, who have disabilities, have developed the integration
workshop.
The Rex was attached to
of 3D printed
stand
And she was able to put
molds
her
to help,
arms into the
for example,
racks,
this patient
and for the first time
have
be
more
able to
mobility.
lift her hand up towards her mouth.
She just started, throwing her hands around and playing.
We were bringing candy up for her to eat, and we were bringing toys up there, and it was so fun for us to go up there and to see her play.
So that's an example in a child who keeps growing and needs new parts all the time. Those can be 3D printed, and we're starting to even 3D print tissues that can be printed and seeded with the patient's own stem cells to create simple organs and maybe in the future more complex organs. Now, so some of these technologies I mentioned can be used to rethink the future of healthcare. Many of these things weren't even here 10 years ago. How can we rethink the future? Well, I've been lucky to be the faculty in a new institution based in the heart of Silicon Valley called Singularity University. It was formed 4 years ago to bring together folks from medicine, biotechnology, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, to think where technology is and where can it go in the future. It was co-founded by Ray Kurzweil, who was the inventor of text-to-speech, and Dr. Peter Diamandis, who started the X Prize. And we bring together today's leaders and future leaders to think about where is technology and how can we apply that to big problems, to address big challenges like global health and issues of disability and beyond. So one example, for example, the students are developing a way to use low-cost unmanned aerial vehicles to deliver drugs and vaccines in the developing world. Another group of students this summer, led by a Harvard medical student, developed a glove integrated with technologies to do telemedicine, to enable better physical exams embedded in a glove. And because medicine was interesting to everybody from across the spectrum, even from people outside of medicine, I founded a program called FutureMed, where we bring together physicians and folks from IT and gaming and robotics to think about where medicine is going and how to reinvent its future downstream. Now, as I mentioned, many people are coming into healthcare, not just traditional physicians and pharmacists and beyond. We can now reinvent medicine. There's many new startups and incubators bringing people together to, again, apply new thinking to healthcare. And some of those thinkers are actually designers. It's not just enough to have technology. You need to put it together in smart, new ways. It may be rethinking design as in a cane, or rethinking the future of the wheelchair. For example, this wheelchair that's been developed out of MIT, you don't need to wheel it, you can use levers. In some cases, it enables a wheelchair to go up a mountain and go off-roading with bicyclists. And there are new versions which allow gearing and more efficiency for the user, and new ways to access driving by applying design thinking to new technologies. Many of you have seen the Segway. My friend Dean Kamen invented the Segway. You may not know that that was developed first as the iBot, a robotic wheelchair that stands. And you'll see here today some examples of the Segway now being developed into the next generation mobile technologies for even wheelchairs that can climb chairs and beyond. We'll talk more about robotic limbs this afternoon. So design thinking, it's not just enough to have the technology, it needs to be integrated. Just like when we fly, if I wanted to fly back to California where I'm going on Wednesday in a car, I wouldn't just put wings on the car, I would want a whole system. And we can take lessons from other fields, like aviation, in healthcare. There's many examples now. I learned to fly when I was a college student, and later I've been in the United States Air Force, the Air National Guard, as a flight surgeon where I take care of the pilots. And there's lessons to be learned from aviation medicine as well. So for example, checklists. Checklists are now being applied in healthcare in new ways, so you don't cut off the wrong leg, for example. That can improve efficiency. And there's now apps being developed for checklists in the operating room and beyond. We're using simulation now. Simulation has made flying safer. It's now making medicine safer. We can practice procedures. We can reinvent the way we do medical education and training using smart simulation centers. So instead of see one, do one, teach one, we're now seeing one and then simulating it many times to improve medical education. We're using new ways of seeing data. With all this new information, we're going from the world of analog to digital. So we can now, just like a fighter pilot has a heads-up display, they need different information. Sometimes they even need cues, like you're about to hit a mountain. It might give you you might see something talking, saying altitude, pull up. So you need to provide information in new ways to patients, to providers, to healthcare workers. Just like when you drive your car now, sometimes you have a feedback loop. You can have the example of a GPS that helps guide you down your health path. We want just the right information, though, not too much information. It needs to be carefully honed so we don't get overwhelmed. We can think about seeing the world in new ways. There's being developed assisted living contact lenses so we can see the world in different ways. We're now, with Google, developing Google Glass so we can reimagine how we see the world, not just for maybe for use in exercise. Maybe we have able to see the world, for example, apps when we're on a date. We might be able to cheat a little bit and have a wingman app and see different information as you go. So we can think about these technologies in healthcare as well. Maybe in the operating room, or maybe when you're looking at your food and you're trying to improve your diet, you might get other cues as you see your data about your food in new ways.
Pull up, pull up.
I can give you that.
Pull up.
Last two examples would be that of radar, right? As a pilot or in the system, you can see where the other patients are around you, where the thunderstorms are. Or using driving apps now, we can tell where the other cars are. This is the map of Rome being built by the drivers. We can know where the traffic jams are, where the police are. What if we could start to take healthcare data and integrate it in smart ways like this so we can crowdsource information and know our environment? So in many ways in healthcare and medicine, we've been sort of flying blind, kind of with the seat of our pants. Now with some of these new technologies, the genomics, the sensors, smarter robotics, we can reimagine healthcare. We can see our environment and have a map of what's happening. Sometimes that's a map of where diseases are. Sometimes that can be a dashboard of our social network, so we know who, for example, we may not want to shake hands with on certain times based on their social information, right? We can think about how to provide the healthcare system better information, and to integrate this and make it contextual and smart, and take healthcare, which has usually been episodic and reactive, you only get checked up when you have a problem, to a new system where it's continuous and proactive, and apply design thinking and bring people from other worlds into the healthcare system. So I hope in this short 30 minutes, I've helped you think about how we can change the way we do medicine, whether that's in the world of oncology, as we're starting to integrate information to take every tumor and sequence it to provide better care, or how we can change the way we provide and share data from being an organ donor to a data donor. So I encourage you, as you rethink the future of healthcare, medicine, and disability, to look at fast-moving technologies, how they're converging, how we can redefine healthcare and medicine, and provide a safer, healthier, smarter planet. So in summary, as Alan Kay, the inventor, said, in many ways, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. You'll see that today at Hadoop and some of the innovations happening. Those of us in the room who are working in the future of medicine, I think we can start to reinvent healthcare. So the best way to really predict the future is to create it. That's what's happening here at Hadoop, and I hope in the next 50 years we'll see an amazing amount of reinvention for the world of health, disability, and beyond. So with that, I'll say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel Kraft.